Welcome to The Big Story. I am Sean Rose. We will have a verbal battle over what was the biggest story in 2014. For instance, in January 2014, we heard that over 38% of BVI children are obese. Government broke ground to mark the start of work on the cruise pay extension project on May 8 last year, just after the April 22, 2014 contract signing. During the 7th sitting of the House of Assembly in June, the public saw an apparent fractured opposition bench after the veteran politician Ralph O'Neill abstained from voting for a motion tabled by Honorable Andrew Foy. The Office of Complaints Commissioner cited a lack of transparency in accessing government services geared to assist people in need. Opposition members of the House of Assembly disputed the legality of the August 14th sitting of the House. Deputy Premier Dr. Kedrick Pickering welcomed the long-awaited setup of the Labour Arbitration Tribunal as mandated by the Labour Code of 2010. And the Premier Dr. Orlando Smith presented a $311.1 million budget to close off 2014, claiming an economic recovery for the territory. But what are the biggest stories in 2014 according to our panel? Media manager of JTVLive.net, Troy Christopher, says the decision by Honorable Ralph T. O'Neill to step out of the political ring is his biggest story for 2014. Host of JTV's Speak Your Mind, Sam Henry, says Governor John Duncan's hint at a possible commission of inquiry into the cruise pay project, which was expected before the end of 2014, is his biggest story. And host of JTV's Spotlight, Cromwell Smith, sees the opening of the new People's Hospital and related health reform efforts as his biggest story for 2014. But before we get to the battle of the panelists, we have Jason Smith of the Beacon, and he's in the jump seat this evening. And Jason, you've decided that your biggest story in 2014 was the BVI's unexpected economic recovery. Why?
Well, it's really a question of whether there was a recovery at all. I mean, the statistics aren't in for 2014, but if you look at 2013, the statistics which were released a couple of months ago, they were expecting a 1 to 3% decline, and in fact, there was a 2.5% growth. So if that continued into 2014, then the economy should be doing better, but a lot of people aren't feeling it.
But statistics, yes, exactly, because folks on the street are not too concerned about data and statistics. Sure. They're saying things are hard.
And they may be absolutely right, but what I'm saying is you have these two opposing viewpoints, right? You have what the statistics and the officials are saying, and you have, someone who can't find a job or whose business can't get a contract or can't get new business. So, I mean, I think that if we see more economic growth coming into 2015, then that's going to obviously impact politics.
The opposition, and particularly VIP, wouldn't agree with you that there has been some sort of economic growth in 2014, 2013.
Again, it wasn't a personal view. It's what the statistics are saying, and I can certainly see why they're saying that. A lot of people are still suffering, but at the economic level, at the macroeconomic level, it looks like things are looking up, and hopefully that will trickle down soon.
So the notion of an economic recovery is something that we should really agree with, or we should look for the evidence of it in the economy.
Well, I think, as you said, I mean, the statistics will only tell you so much. I think the important thing is, do people feel better off than they did previously? And I'm not sure we're there yet, but I think in 2014, I think that many were still struggling, even though some felt better off.
What about the business sector? What have you been hearing?
I mean, I'm working on a story for the Beacon right now about the construction industry and about forthcoming development. And some folks are saying, well, there's government infrastructure works that are going on, and that's employing contractors. And then eventually, there's a lot going on in North Sound with the high-end villas over there, and eventually that's going to impact the economy overall. But as again, some small contractors are saying, where's my work?
And the VIP, in particular the chairman of the VIP, Honorable Julian Fraser, is saying that the government should spend more and not concentrate on saving. Are we seeing a difference in the economic approach by both parties?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's not just a question in economic strategy. I think it's also a question in, essentially, Mr. Fraser is saying, people are suffering now, we need to spend money now. And, we need to do so in the form of petty contracts, which is traditionally been one method. And I think the NDP has said, well, we should plan for the medium term, brighter days ahead, just give us a couple more years, soon come. And it's taken some time.
Well, it seems as though you've defended your big story for 2014 pretty well. Let me hear from our panel. We have Edgewenka, also called Cromwell Smith, if I may put it in that order. And we have Sam Henry. Let's start with you, Cromwell. How would you rate Jason's big story for 2014 on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'll give it a 8, a 7 or 8.
And why?
Well, I think it's an important story. The economy, I think, has turned around, and I have done my own personal research in the absence of official research. And I found the hotels owners have been really happy with what has been happening. The hotels have been full. The rental cars, one rental car owner told me that he didn't have enough cars to rent this season. Some hoteliers, they said it's the best season they've had in many, many years. The question of unemployment, again, is very hard to predict. It depends on who you talk to, and it depends on what media you look at, that they would say, well, it's not, people are suffering. But I know for a fact that a place like Peter Island, for example, had a 2-day jobs fair. And there are a lot of reports of hotels and other companies hiring again.
So there are many jobs.
So there are jobs.
So you said 8.
So I said I would give it an 8 as a big story. The economy is always very, very important.
What about you, Sam? What's your rating?
I give it an 8 too. I think anything that deals with people's lives, improving people's lives, the economy should be one of the biggest stories going forward.
So you agree with Jason that things are improving?
I agree with Jason, based on what Jason said. If you have statistics that say there's been an increase of 2.whatever%, that's important, that's good, but again, we have to look at what type of increase are we talking about, and is that trickling down? Trickle down is what we really are concerned about. If the government coffers are looking good, if purchasing power is up, but then at the same time, unemployment is down, people are having trouble paying their mortgages, people are having problems with banking, accessing loans and so forth in the bank. I mean, all these things will definitely give us a good indicator. And during my own research, being on the street every day, in the street, working, talking, moving around, looking at what is going on, it hasn't been that good. You know what I mean? For many, many people in 2014. So I'm hoping that it will improve in 2015.
All right, Jason, before we get to what's happening in the Beacon this week, the big story in the Beacon this week, what is your response to the rating that you got from the gentleman?
Well, I think it is one of the more important stories of 2015. I think that it's really going to 2014. Excuse me. And the reason for that is because I think that it's going to impact what happens in 2015. Because I think so much of what we're going to see in the coming months with the campaign season is going to depend on how people are feeling. So I was happy with the writer.
And the big story in the Beacon newspaper this week?
We've got a story about Cuba and the opening President Barack Obama's recent pronouncements on Cuba and what that's going to mean, what tourism industry folks are saying about what that's going to mean in the future.
All right, well, thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you.
When we return, we'll have web manager of jtvlive.net, Troy Christopher, defend his big story for 2014. He says the veteran politician, Honorable Ralph T. O'Neill's decision to step out of the political ring is his big story. We'll be right back.